but we've got a number of new people as well.
Yep. Okay. So just to give you an idea of why we're doing this. Yeah, last year, in fact, almost this time last year, we went through, looked at the legislation and identified a number of things that we thought would trip us up, a number of barriers. And one of them, which we've run this morning, is the selection and installation of the right fire safety product for the right solution. Then we've got, how do we make sure that the asset information is consistent through the lifetime? Then the building safety case, how do we make sure that is something that's going to run through the whole of the project? And we actually ran these workshops initially at Digital Construction Week this last year. We're running some more this year, by the way. But then we've then used those. We've been running sessions over the last year to actually flesh them out. And this is what we're actually going to publish, documents, which I'll show you in a second. The people that have attended this particular working group or this particular topic, we've had over 140 people attending, and you can see that there's some serious players in here. So this particular topic, although obviously we don't have a lot of people on the call today, it's already had a lot of input, which is great.
Absolutely, and that only includes the people in the meetings. We haven't got a list yet of the people who actually didn't attend the meetings, but also input into the document. So that figure will be going up. Sorry, George.
So this is what the document will look like. It does look like, but we're just fleshing it out now. So we've got these recommendations, and what we're going to be doing is feeding this back into Delux as an industry response to how we're going to do stuff, which is really, that brings me on to just handing over to Richard for us to actually flesh that out. Okay, Richard.
Excellent, thank you. Right, Jess, have you got the document? Here we go. Question 2. How do we ensure that the incomplete building services design does not impact this construction? Okay, so the first section is overall consideration. Now, just to say, each of these documents is standalone. So there's going to be a certain amount of repetition. The stakeholder engagement, the first point there, is the most obvious example because it applies to pretty much everything. We have covered that a lot in the previous meeting this morning, and obviously we'll be transposing stuff over from that. So I think we'll move on from that. Right, utilising technology. Can you scroll down a bit, Jess? There we go. And there's some of the points. There's, not that far, mate. Hello? Yeah, let me see the black writing. There we go. Right, utilising 3D modelling. Utilising 3D modelling through BIM can enhance. Can you hear the construction going on behind me?
No.
That's good to know. Utilising 3D modelling through BIM can enhance construction planning and documentation. Despite its benefits, the cost of implementing 3D modelling may pose challenges. BIM is favoured by the government, and 3D modelling could be a key component in line with that. Just as a sidebar, BIM was initially considered building information modelling. George and others have interpreted that to be BIM, better information management, which is where we kind of come at it from BIM for housing. So 3D modelling, yes or no, benefits, pros and cons. George?
Well, certainly it's an important element to things, but it's also, we need to recognise that a lot of the building services people who are doing the installation work may well not be using 3D modelling to achieve that. So it's a matter of being able to use 3D modelling where people are actually using it, but also recognise the fact that probably people that are doing detailed installations may well just use CAD, or indeed not use any CAD at all. They'll just be installing in line with designers' drawings.
Jarek?
Yeah, I think this technology, I disagree with this point altogether. I think it can create more problems than solutions, because I don't believe the problem lies with technology. We as a human race build beautiful buildings, complex buildings for ages without all this technology.
Yeah.
So yes, the technology is there to help if it's used correctly, if people are competent to use it. But all of this 3D modeling is relatively new. There is a lot of especially tier 2 contractors, those specialists, those MEP specialists, which still don't use it or just learning. So I think the problem is elsewhere. The problem is mainly due to contractual engagement, where those specialists are engaged late. They will not produce a design until they're appointed. They will provide prices based on sketch, which is often not developed, it's just sketch, and there's information missing, contradicting information, non-compliance items, and that's is being priced. Then someone is then inherits that price based on that sketch design. Consultants often either over-engineer or under-engineer the design, trying to fight this problem, this complex problem. In the end, you end up with RIBA stage 4, subcontractor engaged, and he's then going out to try to find security specialists, nurse call specialists, fire alarm specialists. Everything else is coordinated, say, if you like.
Isn't a lot of the technological requirement now driven by regulation? A lot of the technology is not about necessarily whether you can build a beautiful building. It's about proving that you're complying with the new regulations.
Yes, but if we're trying to answer the question is, by the way, I've put in a chat, perhaps we could improve engagement with this question if we rephrase it. I just put 3 examples, because I think the question it doesn't sound right. It's just a bit odd. That's just my personal opinion. And I'm probably the one who proposed this question, but I don't think it sounds right. So if we're trying to answer the question, so, how do we ensure that the incomplete building services design does not impact construction? There's a reason why this MEP, often the building services design, is incomplete. So that's where the problem is. Why is it incomplete? And then so there's kind of 2 parts of this question, because there's a reason why, and then accepting the incomplete design. Yes, okay, we know the reasons. For example, what I just mentioned, that's the reasons, that we end up with the situation that the MEP design is incomplete, and what do we do about it? So that's the second part of the question, which is probably the important bit. It's difficult. I think that's where I would like to concentrate on, because the reasons why this is incomplete is quite easy to establish and set up rules to try to avoid that situation. But if we are where we are, which is 90% or more of the jobs I am on, and I was involved in for the past 10 years, unfortunate, but that's what it is, then what do you do? What can you do to resolve the situation, improve the situation once you're at that stage?
George.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with Jarek about the situation. But what we're trying to do here is to answer the how we actually resolve it, which I know you are as well, Jarek. And I think technology does have a role to play here, but perhaps not in the way that a lot of people perceive that it does. So what I mean by that is that utilizing 3D modeling, for example, is probably a way of identifying how incomplete things are, and therefore helping the project team to recognize that there's information that does need to be incorporated from elsewhere.
Yes, but sorry to just barge in all the time, but technology without process is worthless.
I agree.
If you have, I'm just on the project now, complex hospital design coordinated to Rebus stage 4 apparently, and it doesn't work because there was no checks done. So it's not just technology. There needs to be a process of how do you use it and how do you check and whether you accept this and so on. What's the purpose of using that particular tool and producing that particular drawing? Or it's just technology itself is just a tool. If you don't know how to use the tool, what's this point? It's better not to use it.
I agree.
George, have you finished?
Yeah, sorry.
Okay, no worries. Liam.
Hi guys. I'm first time I've spoken at one of these, but I've been listening with a lot of curiosity over the last several weeks and this morning's session and into this one now. And what I find really interesting is, and my background, I've not been in kind of construction or architecture kind of in the early part of my career, and I've only pivoted into it in the last few years. And the work that I've kind of been doing, I was kind of brought into a design and build contractor.
Where are you from, Liam? Sorry.
There's two companies. There's a contractor called Work Limited, and we have a sister company that develops technology with the profits from like our modern methods of construction and lean construction. And we're looking to radically reimagine how to deliver information and it comes through the thesis of understanding how to coordinate that information. It's interesting to listen to Jarek talk and different people kind of offering their opinion around, is it technology to blame or is it actually the information? And in the session before, there was the conversation around, at what point do you engage stakeholders and who has to supply the information correctly? And ultimately, I think that there's a couple of things to unpack with it. One,
we lost him.
Yeah, I think he's hung. We'll come back. We'll come back to Liam.
Okay.
Okay,
Strong,
right.
I think.
Okay, let's just look at the beyond 3D modeling, around technology dealing with competency and compliance. Can you scroll down a little bit, Jess? Oh, Liam, are you there?
Am I back?
Yeah.
Are you back?
Yeah.
All right, sorry, carry on, Liam, carry on.
No, all I was saying was that it feels like there's a cultural issue because in Japan, for example, we see that they're able to do complex builds in short time frames, and it's not that they kind of apply technology better or that they have kind of more high fidelity BIM models or whatever it is. It's that they actually, at the beginning of a project, when the tender is won, the contractor, the architect, and the client all get in a room together and have a love-in, and they really scrutinize and interrogate the information on offer and demand the bits that aren't, so that they're able to do it in a much more comprehensive way once the job starts. And over in the UK, it feels that we're a bit more confrontational, and people don't want to absorb risk to themselves, and so people kind of de-risk themselves in a project, and everyone has their own model, whether that's a 2D piece of information or a 3D model, and it's rare that there's kind of that golden thread that actually coordinates all the information right at the start, so that those you can identify the problems that you don't know you're going to have. That's what we call it. And whether you use a BIM model for your golden thread, or you use, you know, a database that informs that in 2D, they're the same thing. But a lot of the time, it's about the coordinated information at the start is not complete, and we don't encourage everyone to sit in at that top end of the funnel where the effort is, like the McClemy curve, where, you know, top front efforts interrogating design means that there's cost savings and time savings towards the end, and there's an immediate practical kind of push towards sustainability, because procurement is far more precise. You don't have people you know, cold calling your office, like, you know, carpet bombing you with kind of things that you don't need. You're able to post that you're able to post your requirements to the market and have the sale come to you. And there's a whole factor of benefits if we all coordinate design information at the top end. But it's just, how does that happen as kind of a cultural play?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. This, what we're trying to do here is provide some of the how. Just scroll down a bit now, Jess. So technology dealing with competency and compliance management. We spoke in the last meeting a lot about accreditation, so I think we're not going to do that again here. Scroll down a bit more, please. Third-party validation. Okay, that's the...
One of the things I would say just about the technology identifying what the issues are is that that needs to be done progressively and not at the end. So that so that things can get picked up early and therefore addressed before people have moved on. So I think, you know, that's principally what the BIM process is supposed to do, but all too often, in particular, the collection of what gets installed is left until the end of the project, by which stage a lot of the specialists have moved on. That's not really
absolutely. That actually brings us on to the next point, which is the information, the management of information. We've talked about data standardization. Just can you scroll just up a little? Right. Okay. That's no. It's all right. All right. In a previous meeting, we had a bit of a discussion around a single platform. George, do you want to have a run through on that?
Yeah,
single platform being the solution. Everything goes into a single platform.
Yeah, well, that's been muted in lots of situations, and I think it's not very helpful because it restricts innovation, and it's also probably completely impractical because you've got so many different parties involved. What is critical is that there should be a standard data standard so that information is exchanged easily between the different platforms. So that's two elements to that. One is that we need to make sure that we've got standardized data libraries that can therefore be consumed by the different software applications. And also we need to ensure that the people that are using those software applications are competent so that they don't inadvertently produce stuff that nobody else can read. Because unless we have interoperable machine readable information, I think we'll have significant problems going forwards. The use of AI, for example, has got to be implemented within this process, and you're not going to be able to do that unless you've got standardized information.
Okay, we've had concern. The questions are about the building design. But we've got a point down here. It's not just about the building design. It's very specifically also about the building services design. Okay, that's Peter McAteer.
I was just going to endorse what George said there. The idea of a single platform is utter nonsense. It will never get anywhere. It would be an absolute monster that made everybody's life a pain. There are what I'd call integration layers that sit on top of data sets that make the integration of data a lot easier than it used to be. We've got one that sits on top of our system that allows our system to talk to any other system. So the technology has moved on a great deal on this side of things. And as George said, AI is a critical subject here. And there are government initiatives, including the HSE, which are looking at how do we get that data integration to work in such a way that it is viable across multiple entities, but we have a single source of the truth as well. So we're participating with the Institute of Construction Management in an initiative there with Innovate UK on that kind of direction. But just to recognise and endorse exactly what George said, but what I believe we will end up with is a number of data silos that are enabled to be able to talk to one another. So we do still get the golden thread, we do still get the compliance, and we get the competencies associated with it. And what we're doing is integrating competency, compliance and risk so that we bring the three of them together as live information in the moment, so we know where we're exposed and what to do to fix it.
Abdullah.
Hello, thank you.
Hi there.
Morning.
Where are you? Sorry, first, where are you from, Abdullah?
I'm with Dassault Systems, software technology company, and I just wanted to ask about the single platform comments and the perception or the discussion around that. Is this just a discussion around a universal single platform for everyone, everything, or are we talking within a project scope?
George.
Within a project and also within a portfolio of buildings. So a client may have 100 or 1,000 buildings, and they've been developed at different times over a period by hundreds of designers and contractors using a range of different software applications. So yeah, does that answer your question?
Yeah. Thank you. Okay. Yeah. It raises more questions, but yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Jarek.
Yeah, so I also agree the single platform doesn't work. It will never work. But just to an idea, okay, how to answer the question, what to do so the incomplete design will not impact the construction. Now talking about technology, yes, so we can use the technology to first identify what the problems are, what the non-compliant items are, and hopefully if we as a construction will do lessons learned, we could then, after identifying the problems, we could then say, right, if that will be left unattended, ideally in line with the project program, that's the most likely implications. That will bring people to attention, snap them into attention, and do something about it. But so use the technology to first of all identify what the problems are. That's one of the solutions. What can be done, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, scroll down a bit, Jess. Right, let's look at simplifying fire regulations, standardizing fire safety regulations. I think we can move past that one. Considerations at design stage. Okay, right, understand the designer's duties and responsibilities. I think that's taken as read. Planning and design processes need to be well structured to avoid construction issues. This to include coordinating build and M&E design to prevent compromises and potential dangers.
I think this feed. Sorry, Abdullah's still got his hand up. Is there something else you want to say, Abdullah? No, that's okay.
Sorry, I didn't realize it.
No. Yeah, so part of this potentially, I guess, I'd suggest that we look at this from the point of view of also the principal designer, which obviously is the new role that's been introduced, because my understanding is that the principal designer, in their scope, they need to understand both the design of what they're doing, assuming they're directly designing on the project, or all of the other disciplines as well. So I think the scope of understanding how for example, the M&E design, which is, what one of the things that is the challenge here with the rest of the design, so that, for example, walls in builders work holes in compartmentation are in the right place rather than in the wrong place. So that's one of the things. So I guess I don't know if there are any designers on the call, or anybody that's maybe taking on that PD role. Any volunteers?
Any designers?
Can I barge in again? Sorry.
You can.
I'm not principal designer, but I am a designer, and responding to what I see on the screen. Yes, the process is the key. If we talking about golden thread of information and a process, I guess we leaning towards ISO 19650 process, which if the whole project team would comply with and follow the requirements and have some trigger points, gateway checks, then it will definitely improve the situation, because again, it will bring into attention the problems and possible implications downstream, and then people will hopefully act accordingly. Also, what I'm seeing on this first point, accountability is a massive issue in construction industry because there's a lack of accountability. And I'm not sure if any of you have any comments on that. How can that be improved, for example?
Anybody got any thoughts on accountability? Okay. So it's that time. Richard Bacon, accountability.
Hi, Richard Bacon. I work for Albany, PFI company. Probably most people's worst enemy in lots of ways. Actually, technical compliance manager. From an accountability point of view, principal designers, principal contractors, first thing that we're always looking at, I've got very sloping shoulders. I like to chuck everything to everybody else if I can. So going across back to sort of like reference Jarek if I can. Over the 15 years now in PFI, lots of the projects that I've got involved in, I've sadly taken over sort of buildings already exist, O&M manuals in various states of completeness or not. And would love to have been able to have said contracts were written out well enough in the first place to make people accountable for lack of information. So subsequently, sort of with variation works taking place, where I've certainly found where you've got a particularly strong principal designer holding people to account from the minute that a project is conceived and going, right, we need this info to be able to build whatever it is that we're doing. So middle of a government building, new suite of offices taking place, you've got a week. If it's not designed properly, if everything isn't structured properly, it's never ever going to take place. But I want, as obviously as the PFI, I want to know we've got a complete set of O&Ms at the end. That principal contractor role and holding everybody to account for each element of what is going to be taking place over a period of time before the work actually takes place is key. Whether that information lives on 2 or 3 platforms or not, personally, I couldn't care less. If it all ends up all going into one set of O&M manuals that are accurate at the end of the day, it's about someone having the gonads to hold people to account. So what Liam was saying, that I've sort of spoken to people from foreign countries. I used to work out in Greece at one point, which you wouldn't believe some of the things that happened out in Greece. But going to like what Liam was saying, if you look at what happens out in the Far East, a whole group of people sit around a table, and until we've agreed literally every element of what is going to be taking place during the point of construction of a building, ground does not get broken. It really is. We need to know everything that is going in here. And if there is anything that's left as an undesigned element, it will be because it is reliant on being 3 stories tall before you realise a skyline to be able to put something in the right place. Like it'll be dependent. So principal designer, absolutely key. Got to own everything. That when I'm employing a principal designer, I'm employing someone to own every element of the design from every party that's involved, to be able to tell me, no, this is all going to work, everything's all going to fit in, we've got routes in the right places and everything else. Absolutely key. That's that level of accountability. I'm willing to pay really good money for a principal designer if it means that they're holding everyone to account.
That's
So just
I think most people would agree. Sorry, George.
Yeah, I was just going to say, you may not be aware of this, but this is the new revisions that came in August, which actually put huge weight behind what you're saying there. This is the amendments to Regulation 38, which, as I'm sure you know, is the fire side of things. And just to summarize what it is, the client now has got to confirm that they've received all of the information that they need to operate the building safely. Yeah. Now that's a big change. And the principal designer and principal contractor, the project team, have got to declare that they've provided all the information and also that they've received something back from the supply chain. So I think the task for SPVs like yourselves is in future going to be significantly changed. But the other point is this is something now that should have been, this is just following building regs. So it's just a clarification of building regs. I think client organisations, NHS Trust, for example, should be doing that. So anyway, I just thought that might help.
No, that's great. Thank you. Kevin.
Yeah, I was going to offer my contribution, really. I mean, the thing that I hear throughout the earlier session and this one is that this overarching relationship issue that seems to be prevalent within all construction contracts, that everything is based on a win-lose mentality. And ultimately, accountability is a function of fear or lack of fear. So I think the reason why people are reluctant to be accountable is that often it's about carrying the can or the feeling they're going to carry the can at the end of it. And in some way, it's about repositioning the contract and repositioning the relationship. And I believe one of the young guys spoke earlier about sort of Japanese mentality and how that differs. And I think a lot of these things all come from that win-lose mentality that's prevalent throughout construction. You know, that there has to be a loser, in which case you don't want to take any responsibility because you might be that loser. And until those relationships are improved, then it's very difficult to get accountability that means anything. You know, and I'm sure nobody wants it to be anything less than successful when they start out, but there's always that fear they may be the person that everybody points the finger at. And I think that seems to be the issue.
Yeah, personal risk avoidance, isn't it?
Yes, and corporate as well. I think corporate comes into a little bit.
Absolutely, absolutely. Jonathan, you're on mute, Jonathan.
All right, just got. I hope
you
can hear me now. All right. Thanks for the opportunity.
Welcome. Where are you from, Jonathan?
Till recently, I worked for Durkan Construction,
okay.
where I have met George. But currently, I work for Jacobs. Perhaps some people might know it as Jacobs Engineering. And I work as principal information manager. So I'm neither a designer or a contractor, what have you, but I've only just been looking from the perspective of information management. Great. And I think from experience, I really like what was it Richard and Liam said. And all of this tied, in together when you even look at question of accountability. Now, I want to just bring us back to 2 key points. I think where the BSA is going with the golden thread puts a whole lot of responsibility with the clients. And I think where the main problem has been till now, oftentimes, and even till recently, is that the clients actually have not been, I feel, have not been specifying very clearly what is it that they actually need. And that actually leaves the entire project delivery team looking in the water glass or in the cloud, what information to provide. So I think that the Act has nailed one key element by putting a whole lot of responsibility back to the clients. Now, if we do have well-specified information requirements from the clients, it is easy for the contractor to pick this up and break it down into scope of works for the different members of the supply chain. This is where you can begin to ask the question about accountability. Now, I have been taking some time to look back into the Act a little bit, and there are 3 key things that came up to me, which is first, what exactly is it that the client needs to meet the compliance requirements in terms of keeping the building safe, keeping the people safe, and having all of those information that meets the requirements. The second thing is the information that the contractor will need to generate in the process of time to be able to deliver the assets. And the third thing is there will be other sets of general information that are not particularly core requirements or specified or requested, but will actually help to give a robust delivery of information which satisfy very largely what will be needed by various parties to actually use and maintain the building post delivery. So I think where the key point first lies is, on one hand, the client having clear requirements for them to be able to fulfill their obligation, whether it is for compliance or for them to be able to manage the asset. The second part is having the principal contractor being able to identify these core requirements and delineate who is producing them. And I think until you get to that point, you can begin to really hold people accountable, because till now, everything has been in the sky. We have cases even where clients would just dump on a project, and I've seen this even with some of the best of clients. They dump down a whole lot of information to say, well, this is all the history we have on this project. We've been building, over XYZ years. This is all the information, that we have within our portfolio of assets. So you just figure out all you need. And you see that the attitude in the industry is that even the principal contractor, oftentimes, when they are procuring, they oftentimes will just churn out this massive amount of information also down the supply chain. And they say, oh, it's there, just look for it. And they specify the contract in such a way, that it leaves the rest.
It is very much down to management of that information and retrievability of that information once you've found it. Absolutely, Jonathan. Anybody else on information management?
I'd just like to endorse what Jonathan said there, by the way.
Okay, do you want to put the document back up? Right, where are we? Yeah, scroll down a little bit. Competency, tools and resources.
Certainly rethinking the procurement process is, I think, a common theme, isn't it?
It is. Anybody got any thoughts on that? It's a huge subject. That actually, it's quite interesting, George. If you think back a couple of years ago, when we 2-3 years ago, when we began this journey, procurement always came in as like a side issue. It was kind of mentioned, and as the years have gone by, it's become much more key, hasn't it? Don't you think? Or it's much more recognised as being key.
It has, but the disappointing thing is that we've not had many procurement people involved in getting engaged.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to change, because what we're also seeing is that main contractors now, because of the risk that they now perceive they have in delivering it against this whole process, they're recognizing that procurement needs to understand the importance of quality as opposed to just cost. Yeah.
Jarek.
Yeah, so I just want to reinforce what Jonathan said about the importance of establishing requirements by the client. And if we talking through the prism of ISO 19650 as a framework for information exchange, yes, the standards put more responsibility for accountability on the client, but he may not have the expertise to even realize whether what he's asking for or receiving is right. So he needs some help with that. But going back to competency, those two first points, which then links to procurement process. So when the client issues the project requirements, he's supposed to receive this information delivery plan, which is BEP and all associated documents. And then the whole idea was that the client will be able to compare the tenders and choose the best team for the project, not the best price, best team, which includes the competent person or team and the main contractor, for example, and its supply chain. Because often, unfortunately, and I've been witness of that, even UK government project I worked on, selected main contractor who was clearly not competent to deliver that project. If they checked all the requirements, that main contractor should not be selected. So that is the importance, is to follow the process, use the tools we have, but follow them, and then have some checks. But those checks are not being carried out for some reason.
Okay, anyone else on this?
Yeah, I'd like to just reinforce that, because one of the things I've come across regularly, even on things like Procure 21 and Procure 22, which are the NHS frameworks, which are intended to be looking at things from a point of view of quality procurement. The quality is assessed largely, or rather, the quality is on the team. Yeah, so I've seen teams that have supported main contractors, and then the main contractors then appointed, and then they changed the team. Yeah. Now, I think that's less so now under Procure 21. I think that they've recognised that, but I think that it's important that it's not just the tier 1 that's selected; it's the tier 2 and probably the tier 3 that needs to be recognised part of that team.
I want to just move to do quality assurance management. It comes up in I think in all the documents, and we've not really got a great deal of detail on it. Anybody got any thoughts on that? And how do we manage quality assurance? It's just about inspections, frequent inspections throughout the construction process. Before then, what does it actually mean?
Well, one thing I would say is that you need to determine what the quality is that you're expecting. So quality is part of the definition of information, of requirements, because it may be that you're, from a cost and an affordability point of view, you're selecting something that isn't the grade A, but as long as it's satisfying what the requirement is, there's no point, for example, in having materials that will last for maybe 20 or 30 years when the life of that particular building, let's say a retail store, for example, it's probably going to get refurbished after 5 years or within 5 years. So therefore, it's horses for courses, really, I guess.
So again, it's defining this at the beginning.
Correct.
Anybody else on that?
Just a general comment, really. It's more around the a checklist of, as you say, checking the design, the products that are used in the design are correct, suitable, lifespan, everything from there. Then moving on to the installation, that's checked, products are still suitable, and then through to maintenance, that again, that they can be inspected regularly to ensure that it's still compliant. It's all about those checklists, depending on the product system that's being installed or designed into that building, which is part of parcel what manufacturers and the tier 1 contractors or contractors should be doing, as well as the contractor installing it, and that should be recorded throughout that whole process. So if there is any changes to a product, a system, because it's not going to meet that lifespan, or there's going to be a confliction with something else, then you can remove that confidently, put in a product that is suitable, and then record that process from there. That's the way I see it.
It's a continuity of information, isn't it?
I mean, a product that might be quality at the start might not be suitable as the project continues. So it's continually evaluating those checklists to ensure that it is still suitable once everything's around it, it's all been installed, that it's still. It's example, installing 3 ton of glass in an area that may need to be replaced. If it gets smashed, how are you actually going to get that glass into that placement as well? There's there's certain aspects of there throughout the whole project. I'm going off a bit of a tangent there, but it is around.
Absolutely. Richard, you had your hand up. Richard Bacon.
So different people's idea of quality, or it's quality can be defined, can't it? In so much as getting what you expected. Yeah. So if you've got what you expected, you've got a quality product. I.e., for some people, a Ford is a quality product because that's what they were wanting. Other people, a Mercedes is a quality product because that's what they were wanting. Yeah. If you expected a Mercedes and only got a Ford, you'd be right to complain. In some ways, so depending on your personal viewpoint. The whole bit about the building services design, and this is where it all goes back to the accountability principal designer and getting a complete design before the construction starts, is you've then got defined what it is that you're expecting at the end of the day. A client, allowing for the amount of funding that they've got to be able to do any given project, can have a design that's put together and costed to come up to that value. So quality has just been set. You're expecting that at the end of the day. So the ongoing coordination and quality assurance that you're doing is, are we getting what we expected, given that we had a complete design?
Okay, so
you really can define it. It's a constant check that goes through.
Are we getting what's expected? So who makes that judgment on as the things being put together and constructed? Who's making that judgment?
What, the combination of people that are doing that is the client and the principal designer.
Client and principal designer.
who have made sure that there is a complete design in the first place to be able to cost against.
Excellent. Very good. Very good. Abdullah.
Well,
thank you. I was just curious to see no mention to off-site manufacturing or prefabrication in the topic of quality assurance. You know, when we can have things made and tested and proven before being incorporated into the building. So I was just wanted to mention that.
Yeah, I don't think we've excluded that at all. We've not explicitly included it, and certainly, Abdullah, you're right. But it's also the case that when you get elements that have been off-site manufactured, the assembly on site is sometimes problematic as well. So it doesn't. That's not silver bullet, perhaps.
No, but I think Abdullah's right to mention it, because it is part and parcel of the potential mix, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
If I can jump onto that,
we could add something in on that. Yeah, sorry.
It's actually in the blue notes. I hadn't got there yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've got it. Kevin.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think the point that Jonathan made earlier is also relevant, in that we've seen a trend over the past few years from moving from a detailed design specification to a performance specification. So unlike the earlier spec, which would have, instilled the quality by saying we must have a certain type of certain manufacturers' components, we're now seeing more often not performance specs, which leaves it to the contractor to decide exactly, what type of equipment or what he's planning to use within the construction. So there's less ability to actually specify the quality than there would have been 10, 20 years ago.
That's changing though, Kevin. Under the new legislation, there's a much stronger control on that, particularly on HRBs.
Right, sorry, Jarek, do you want to?
Sorry, I was opening a door.
All right, briefly, if you can, because I do want to actually move down to something.
Yeah, just what Abdullah mentioned about the modular building, that's great, but without, again...
Right, sorry, can I stop you? Can I stop you? Just, can you scroll down to number 10, I think it is. Yeah, keep going.
It's got the modular there, Richard. I think you were on it.
Was it on there? Yeah, go up one, John. Just go up a bit. Yeah. I knew we got it in here.
There we go. Yeah.
There we go. Consideration at construction stage. Lack of coordination between build and M&E design can lead to compromises and potential dangers. Starting the design process with modular builds can improve construction outcomes. Jarek.
Right, so now I bring a very good example. I'm on a project now, modular build, a massive hospital, Frimley Park, by the way, and the M&E design, there was a missing 3 electrical risers were missing, not there, and the openings, building works, which are part of the modular building, just not there. And we were in a very difficult position where we had to find the route through 3 electrical risers from massive supplies, which were kind of forgotten about. And that's just bring the importance of process and leading to quality checks and so on. But there must be some trigger gates and someone responsible for checking and accepting whether the information provided is complete and accurate and compliant and so on. This is really problematic across all the projects. So somewhere in the process, the checks are not being done.
So that's not necessarily that modular build doesn't work. It's a question of that the process needs to be improved.
Communication, yeah. So checks not done, quality lacking in checking the quality of information received or provided, and then technical aspect of the information provided, and whether this is coordinated. And I'm not talking about spatial coordination, I'm talking about information coordination. So because it could be picked up early that there is something missing, something critical like missing electrical riser. It should be picked up much earlier. And that would be, then you could do something about it before this modular building is actually manufactured.
Absolutely, absolutely. Anybody else on modular building?
Is that modular building going into a larger building that's been built traditionally, or is it completely modular?
It's joins into existing building, but that is a completely new separate part.
Yeah,
which will be joined.
Anybody else on modular building?
I was just going to Derek's point. I think that comes into the modular design is responsible for the design of the building. So their early engagement should be with Derek and his team to get them in early in terms of, does this look okay to you? You know, is this what do we need to factor in? Because Derek, you would have picked that up straight away and gone, where's my risers, where's, you know, etc. So it is that's so you will have an architect for that job. Then you've got a modular company designing the building, and there's obviously a disconnect then between the M&E, the other services that then go through, and it's like that, you know, get them all in the room to start with to say this is what we're doing, engage one, and then you can highlight straight away there's a problem that I haven't got the services there to work to. So there may be a disconnect between the architect designing the building and then linking that through to the modular. There's you've got another service involved in there. That's from what I can see there. Sorry, George.
A common problem that we come across is the forget modular for the minute, the lack of coordination between the electrical design and the mechanical design, and the fact that the spaces are referenced differently in the different platforms. So we end up with situations where the architect, for example, will have defined all the spaces that they're responsible for, but the spaces where the services are going through haven't been defined, or they've been defined in a separate model, which hasn't been properly coordinated back to the architectural model. So therefore, a lot of risers, for example, are just not there as proper spaces. They're drawings, you can see them on a drawing, but they're not defined spaces.
Okay, well, that's perfect timing. We've got well, you've certainly given us a lot of more work to do on this document, and we thank you for that sincerely. We've got a lot to do, and we're only halfway through the day. So guys, thank you very much indeed. That's been really excellent, really excellent. And I guess we'll see the marathon runners in the next couple of meetings. Cheers.
Thank you.
I'll tell you what I can, okay, guys, but nice to meet everyone.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye. Thank you.